Now that the biggest rookie names for fantasy are off the board, well, mostly Mr. Sanders is on the way. We can stop overusing that phrase landing spot dependent, and now that we have meaningful NFL value to attach to our fantasy prospects. So, welcome to TH Fantasy Football Draft Reaction Show as Ed and I go through each position now that rounds 1 to 3 are firmly in the books. It's been exciting, hasn't it, so far, Ed?
Yeah, for everyone, I think, apart from maybe Mr. Shedeur Sanders, who has, as we record, we're between rounds 3 and 4, yet to come off the board. A few column inches dedicated to that, but I think we'll leave that for now. See where he does end up. But there are plenty of other quarterbacks to talk about.
Let's get into those quarterbacks then, and as you say, plenty to talk about. Cam Ward, Jackson Dart off the board round 1, couple off in round 2, and 1 in round 3 as well. Not Shedeur Sanders as we would have expected, but there are some interesting bits there. I mean, Cam Ward, interesting, yes, because he's the first player off the board, but exciting, unsurprising, no, fairly obvious. I think my biggest surprise maybe he's still only got Ridley to work with. No one else been taken as we are recording. Tyler Shaw, maybe a bit of a shock, but similar build to Prescott, Herbert, and Hurts, who Kellen Moore has worked with before. Time will tell, I guess. But, I mean, Derek Carr isn't certain to be even starting the season, is he? It's very up in the air whether he's going to go for surgery or not. And if he does, whether he'll be back. Potentially, shouting off someone who's an also ran to being a day one starter. Dylan Gabriel, that's an odd one. And it is about as best I can put on there. Undersized, both Sanders and Howard would have made more sense to me for the Browns to take. But I think, is it tried and tested, the Browns not making sense at quarterback movements? Probably isn't it?
Yeah, they've got a history of it. They've got to keep up their tradition.
And as you've already said, Shedeur Sanders at the time of recording is not been taken off the board. So much hyperbole. You say so many column inches, social media inches, overreactions, gifts, etc., etc. But he could still end up with a perfect landing spot. He could still end up being a day one starter. Once again, we don't know, but that draft capital certainly won't be there. A player who does have that draft capital, and a player that I've certainly spoken a lot about in the offseason, you're going to mention now, though, is our New York Giants quarterback, isn't it, Ed?
Yeah, Jackson Dart. I think I'm not sure he was expected to be second off the board. Clearly, Sanders was expected to go ahead of him. But I like the landing spot for Dart. He's behind Russell Wilson and he's behind Jameis Winston, you would imagine. But I wouldn't say over the last few years they have been the most consistent performers. And so I think there's every chance that Jackson Dart could be a starting quarterback at some point in this upcoming season. He's got weapons there in New York, the most obvious one being Malik Neighbors. Would he be fantasy relevant this year? Probably not, but who knows? I certainly wouldn't trust Wilson or Winston to kind of nail down the starting quarterback spot. So I think Dart has got himself a good landing spot there.
He's got time to develop, as you've said. He's a good fit for the offense. Will Russ be a good mentor? Who knows? Will he be Russ playing all season? We did say when we spoke about the Giants quarterback situation earlier in the offseason, would they take somebody else? And if they did, because of that relatively small, relatively low-cost contract that Winston got, will he be there when the season starts? I think that's probably up for debate as well, especially as any quarterback injuries come in and he might be offered a role somewhere else. But yeah, I think it's an exciting spot for Dart. And I say I've been higher on him the most, I think, through the off season. And this is a landing spot that I can see fruit of it coming in. We're talking more Dynasty now, aren't we? We're not saying this is an exciting move for redraft by any means. Dynasty-wise, though, it is an interesting one.
I think Dart will, I think he'll have a decent career at NFL level. He's not a franchise quarterback, but I think he will certainly do a job. And I can see him having a starting spot going forward. Maybe not this season, but in the future.
Player I want to mention is someone that I think we build as in our quarterback show, superstar or bust. And that is Jalen Milroe. And I absolutely love this landing spot. I really, really do. He'll sit behind Sam Darnold to start. John Schneider drafted Russell Wilson back in round 3 in 2012. So there's a precedent for success here. We said he needed to be somewhere that he could grow, he could develop, he could work on his game. He's going to get that behind Sam Darnold, at least in that short term. Clear issues that he needs to resolve in his game, but it's that rushing upside from a fantasy perspective that is really. Remember last year, just over 700 yards and 20 rushing touchdowns, which is absolutely amazing. I think he is a brilliant taxi squad acquisition in your rookie drafts, because sitting there, leave him there, drop him in a couple of years if nothing comes for it, or potentially plug in a fancy relevant quarterback that you've got late in your rookie drafts, or probably even possibly off your waiver wire, depending what your draft is like, what your league is like. Yeah, safe to say, outside of injury, we're not going to get much from him in 2025. But if there were an injury to Sam Darnold, expect all sorts of waiver wire hype going around Jalen Milroe in your redraft leagues as well, as people wait to see what has happened. Those of you that are watching us on YouTube or listening to your podcast app of choice, please subscribe to the show. Give us a like and a share as well. We would very much appreciate it. We've got content coming to you all the way through the off-season now and then into the main season. But our focus now is going to shift to wide receivers, and several off the board so far, aren't there, Ed?
Yeah, I think it wasn't necessarily slated as a brilliant wide receiver class. There's clearly talent in there, but yeah, I think it's quite surprising how many have come off the board.
So we're looking at, in round 1, 4 wide receivers, round 2 another 3, and then in round 3 6 more have come off, which is, say, a significant. It always is with wide receivers. There's always plenty there to choose from. Ted McMillan, an immediate weapon for Bryce Young, I think is fair to say. I see him in that lineup as being wide receiver 1, but there is clear target share going to be going on in there as well. So that's one of these works. It's probably not the ideal fancy landing spot, but certainly a really good landing spot for Bryce Young to have him to handle there. Matthew Golden, the first wide receiver the Green Bay Packers have taken in round 1 for 23 years.
Oh, the Green Bay Packers, as you said there.
Did I just say the Green Bay? Oh, the Green Bay.
No, green.
So, have I? Oh,
yes,
you even proofread this for me.
I proofread it, so it's 50-50. We're both at fault.
I was lower on him pre-draft than many. I think I'm even lower on him now at the minute, because who wants to take a punt on a Green Bay Packers wide receiver when there's about 4 million of them?
That's it. There's another. We had this conversation last off season. Who is the Green Bay wide receiver 1? We've just got another name to make it even more cloudy. So yeah, that'll be a very interesting talking point going through the off season.
Trey Harris, I love this for the Chargers. I'm not sure I love it for Trey Harris's fancy upside, but I think McConkey and Harris could be a really, really great pairing. Both can be fantasy relevant. And I've got a feeling we're talking about the Chargers, Justin Herbert, when we do our winners and losers of the draft during the week as well, because they've had an exceptional draft. Who is it you want to concentrate on, though, out of these people? I mean, there's not really any surprises. It's the name of the top board, the name that we have not stopped speaking about for about 3 months.
Maybe it's gone under the radar a little bit with some, but I know it's obvious. But the reason I wanted to talk about this was because I absolutely love this landing spot for him. And I think I loved that Jacksonville traded up to get him. It was so aggressive. And I think it is, him and Brian Thomas Jr., alongside Trevor Lawrence, is just so exciting for the league. I think it's clear he's going to play predominantly as a wide receiver. So in terms of his fantasy upside, I think, we've got confirmation almost on that. And I think by the sounds of it, he's going to get quite a few snaps at cornerback as well. So we'll see how he copes with that. He certainly has the talent to cope with that and the determination, etc. He wants to be that kind of generational unicorn, doesn't he, Travis Hunter? But yeah, I think it's great for T-Law. I'm a big fan of T-Law, but I think it really is this season for T-Law. You've got the weapons now go and deliver. There are no more excuses for him, really, with Travis Hunter and Brian Thomas Jr. And I think Jacksonville will have a similar problem in a few years' time to what the Bengals have experienced with Higgins and Chase, having two elite wide receivers that they'll have to pay about the same time. But that's worry for a future year. At the moment, I just think it's a brilliant landing spot, and I just can't wait to see him develop as an NFL player.
There was no better indicator that the Jags were interested in Hunter than when every single bit of information coming out in the couple of days before were that they were going for Genty. As soon as you hear that, you're thinking, no team's actually declaring exactly who they're going for. This is going to be a smokescreen for something. And Hunter was the player they had targeted. Liam Cohen said that they're going to start focusing offense first. That's as good a quote as we could have hoped for, isn't it, really, from a fantasy point of view? Potential that split role, as you said, with Brian Thomas Jr. So that does bring the ceiling down a little bit. Your rookie drafts, though, I think anywhere between the 103 and 105, I think really is what we're probably looking at for him, isn't it?
Definitely. I think the draft and the landing spot has boosted his fantasy outlook, and he's going early in fantasy drafts. I can see him going. Some people will take him 101, which he shouldn't be going, but definitely 103 to 105 is about where he should go.
I want to talk about a player that was a little bit of a shock, I think, to be taken by the team. That not where he was taken, but by the team he was taken by. And that is Emeka Egbuka, who is on his way to Tampa Bay. Bit of a strange one, not ideal for year one fantasy value. Poor Jalen McMillan. Our thoughts go out to him and his fantasy relevance of the future. 2 or 3 years ago, landing on a roster as a wide receiver on a team with Evans and Godwin would have been a fantasy disaster. Not so much now, is it? I think we're going into year 32. I'll get that right properly. He's going to be age 32 as he heads into the new year.
Year 32, wow, that would be
32.
That would be impressive.
And Godwin will be going into his 30th year on the planet as he enters next season as well. So there is a route to that longevity for Egbuka. What a wide receiver room to be learning your trade from, though. I mean, he's got so much knowledge around him. That's going to be amazing. 2025 fantasy production, maybe not so exciting, but long term, very much so. But so we've got 2 aging wide receivers there. If one of them misses time, that could shift that production very, very quickly in season. I think the way that we've seen Mayfield's resurgence as well, and the way that he is slinging it to his wide receivers, I think after initial bit of head scratching, maybe this is a really good landing spot for Dynasty. Redraft takes that, as we've said, but I'm really excited about the future for Emeka Egbuka, and I'm looking forward to trying to pick him up in as many places as I can in the middle of round 1 of our rookie drafts as well, I think.
Yeah, we talked him up, didn't we? Pre-draft in the wide receiver show. We were both big fans of him. And yeah, with the dust settled, I think this is a great landing spot for him. So I can see him getting decent game time this year. And who knows what will happen with injury, etc. But yeah, a cracking wide receiver, and excited again to see how he develops.
Now, if you're watching us, you have got no surprise at all when we mention quite a deep running back class this year for fantasy and for the NFL in general. And several have made it off the board already. Ashton Genty, as expected, is now in the Las Vegas Raiders locker room. Exactly as we thought would happen. I'm hoping Raheem Mostert isn't going to be a nuisance for his fantasy production. I just think that offense is going to be pass it to Bowers or hand it off to Genty. Job done. I can't imagine anything much more complicated with that. Travion Henderson, I'm a little bit disappointed that he goes to the Patriots. I've been excited about him all through the offseason. Could he overthrow Stevenson by the end of the season? Yeah, I think he probably can, but he's going to be taking away valuable snaps from him. They could be a really, really good tandem. It's just not what I was hoping we would see from Travion Henderson as far as hopefully going in as an RB1. Caleb Johnson, I absolutely hate this pick of him going to the Steelers. One, I'm never going to get a season of Jaylen Warren being a fantasy producing running back, am I? I've been on about this for the last 3 years. It's just never going to happen. And 2, he's really, really good. I really like watching Caleb Johnson, and he's gone to Pittsburgh Steelers, and I don't want to see the Steelers get better. And it's just happened,
Really?
hasn't it? He's a great running back. That's going to work really, really well for them. But who are you going to focus on?
Yeah, so I mean, I think generally we may be slightly surprised in terms of how many running backs have come off the board. We thought maybe more in the first round. But the pick that I want to talk about is Quinshon Judkins, who I was really impressed with in my running back research. And I think, again, it's a great landing spot for him in Cleveland. They've invested in him, taking him early in the second round. And what is the running back situation in Cleveland? Chubb we assume that he is done. Is that too much to say? Or is he going to go into a committee, Judkins, or does he have chance to make himself running back one? As a Bengals fan, it's someone who intrigues me because we'll be playing them twice a season. Like I say, I was impressed with him with the research that I did, I think it's a good landing spot for him.
Yeah, and similar to the Steelers, it's irritating that such a great running back has ended up in the AFC North for us. I would expect he's going to be the big back, and Ford is going to be the number 2, and Judkins is going to get a lot of that moving the ball, getting the first downs. That's what we spoke about in the rookie preview shows, wasn't it? He just does that relentlessly. That's why he worked so well with Henderson, wasn't it? Because they were so different. It's intriguing as a fantasy target, and I think probably later in your redraft is worth a punt, but certainly he's going to be rostered within the first round comfortably, I'd say, now in your dynasty leagues as well. It is an interesting one, but I think it's one we need to see how that role grows over it. And also the Browns are just a mess. Just nothing goes as you think it's going to, does it?
That is true. I mean, I think he'll be getting snaps from game one, Judkins.
Yeah.
So I think that there's no danger of him not playing. And it's interesting you mentioned Ford, because I think Ford's very much proved he can't be a lead back. He's a backup, it seems. So Judkins will have that chance to shine. But yeah, you are right to make the point about the Browns in general.
Yeah, he goes in as their RB1, but what's the opposite of having a premium added to you? Like, he just goes in with like Browns like stink all over him, doesn't he? And it just tarnishes him a little bit. A player that also goes into a little bit of a trickier situation than I liked is my favourite pick for this draft so far. That's Omarion Hampton. Landing at the Chargers is absolutely fantastic for him. He is a great fit. He is a perfect Jim Harbaugh running back, but sharing the backfield is a concern because we said how much of a good fit Najee Harris was, and he's got him there for competition now. But I think he'll surpass him by the end of the season. Harris has been solid, but not kind of excited as we'd hoped he would have been over the course of the last few years. I think he's always been better than he feels he is, especially for fantasy value. But he's there on a 1-year contract. So will he be there next year? Probably not. I think it answers the question. No, J.K. Dobbins will not be making his way back to the Chargers as well. That was something we'd spoken about earlier on.
Do you think that's a surprise? I mean, because I thought he did, injury aside, he was out for a few weeks. I thought he was superb at the Chargers, and it looked like he kind of resurrected his career. Is it a money thing? Is that what it comes down to?
Yeah, Hampton's going to be a hell of a lot cheaper, isn't he? And has a higher ceiling. I absolutely love J.K. Dobbins. I think it's not been any secret on the show, but it'll be interesting to see where he goes. Dynasty leagues, Hampton maintains that value. I think, if anything, maybe slightly down for this year, but his long-term value has got fantastic ceiling attached to it. He's still going to be a really solid target. He's still going to be rostered everywhere for redraft. But I think he's a player that you're going to have to be a bit patient with, maybe. Perhaps as he transitions that lead role with Harris, as he learns the offense, learns his way into the NFL. But he's a sort of player I imagine by the time we get to December, get into the fantasy playoffs, you can be very, very happy that you've drafted him when you get into that stage of the season.
He's going to a great situation with a great coach, and exciting times.
Absolutely. Finally, then, let's look at our tight ends. a lot of people said a huge surprise that Loveland has gone ahead of Warren, but we said, could it happen? Yeah, we see a way. I don't think the distance was ever huge between them. I think it's a matter of which flavour do you prefer. They're quite different, different tight ends. They do things different. They have their different strengths and weaknesses. And Colston Loveland going to the Bears is a really, really exciting one. You're going to talk more about that in a moment. Tyler Warren to the Colts. I've gone back and forth in my head over this over the course of the last couple of days. Colts are an interesting fit. He could be very, very important for whoever ends up being the QB1 there overall. I'd be more interested by Warren if that ends up being Jones than if it ends up being Richardson. But let's be honest, if you can't hit a player of Tyler Warren's size and catch radius, you're not going to make it as a QB in the NFL anyway. Terrence Ferguson, who we mentioned in our rookie preview as being someone to watch if he got a good landing spot, and good landing spot he went and got himself. Tyler Higbee missed most of 2024. So just despite tight end depth there being probably the main reason for that decision, he's got potential to develop into the Rams tight end one over the course of this season and beyond. So that's interesting. Elijah Arroyo, very Font-like, and is going in to replace Fant now. Font, I've got my names run around. He's going to replace Noah Fant pretty much. Fant's in the last year of his contract. Lot of targets vacated over in Seattle as well. So this will be really, really interesting. And I think by the time we get to the end of the season, it'll be Arroyo that will benefit from that more than Noah Fant. Fanning Jr., what do you think about this landing spot?
Yeah. Well, he's not landed at the Bowling Green Steelers, has he? Is that another?
What on earth have I done there? You honestly, you have done a terrible job of proofreading this. So he's landed at the Cleveland Browns, not the Bowling Green Steelers. They don't exist as a team. Welcome to amateur. Honestly, I sent all of this for you to proofread, and you clearly did not.
I think I proofread the names, and I probably just glanced over Green and Steelers, and my head went, well, it's either Green Bay or the Steelers, so that looks all right.
How do we feel about him ending up at the Browns?
Yeah, I mean, the Browns have got Njoku, haven't they? Who's been such a solid target for so many years. Well, not so many. He's not that old, is he? So he'll get targets, but he certainly won't be fancy relevant this year. And I think sitting behind Njoku, it could be a bit of an issue for him.
He's a very diverse player, so it'd be interesting if he develops a role alongside Njoku, I guess. But when there were lots of questions about Fanning Jr. stepping up to NFL level, you didn't want a confusing quarterback situation. You didn't want a significant tight end challenge. So that does make it a little bit problematic, doesn't it? But let's go back to the player we mentioned at the top of the tight ends then. Let's talk a bit more about Colston Loveland.
Yeah, just like Travis Hunter, I just wanted to talk about him because I absolutely love this landing spot for Colston Loveland. And I think it's also great news for Caleb Williams, who will get a really strong, reliable tight end target. Yes, I know he's had Cole Kmet, who's solid. I think, he had maybe 50-odd receptions last year, just under 500 yards. Cole Kmet does you a job, but I certainly don't think he is an elite tight end. And I think Colston Loveland will give that other option to Caleb Williams. I expect him to go in there and start. Like we said, I think Colston Loveland and Warren, they were kind of on their own, weren't they? In a tier, and I can see why Loveland went first. And the Bears, I think, have picked up an absolute gem for them and their situation. And as I say, I really think it's going to benefit Caleb Williams next year.
Caleb Williams has got no excuses next year. No. Year 2, he's had the chance to adjust. I mean, negatively for Loveland, it's Crowder, you've said, Komet, Adunze, Moore, and Luther Burden as well. If the trenches have been strengthened as well, Williams has got everything then there for him. I think the thing that really appeals me at Colston Loveland is the Ben Johnson factor. We saw what he did for Sam Laporta. Is he going to do the same for Loveland? Is Loveland going to be that elite tight end's target? Yeah, I agree with you. The landing spot is absolutely fantastic. I don't think what I'd have expected. I thought the Bears would have gone for running back, gone for an early running back pick there. But yeah, makes a lot of sense, and it was a really, really exciting pick as well. We can always do with more high value tight ends in fantasy, and it looks like that's what we may have here. I've mentioned Mason Taylor constantly over the last few. I feel that he was a little bit off my radar when we started doing our tight end research, but then he's kind of just I've become more and more. I'm going to go infatuated rather than obsessed. Is certainly in that bracket of being a my guy. I just find him a really, really interesting player. When the Jets were spoken about as potentially going early for either Loveland or Warren in round 1, to have addressed tackle there and then end up with Mason Taylor towards the top of round 2, I think is absolutely fantastic. So spoke about him loads, and I think this position landing with Justin Fields. Justin Fields is going to rely on him a fair bit. I think the fact that we've got Wilson stretching the field, Mason Taylor playing through the middle is going to really, really help Fields next season. He could therefore be fantasy relevant in 2025, which I said wouldn't really be the case because I didn't think he'd land in such a perfect situation, because I didn't think he'd land anywhere as a tight end 1 predominantly, and he has done that on that Jets roster. I can't wait to get loads of shares of him in rookie drafts. And I do think if you are someone that drafts 2 tight ends for redraft, if you have a deep enough bench, he could be a player worth looking at there. I do think we might well be talking about him as a waiver wire pickup for redraft in the season as well.
Can I just read out the Jets tight end depth chart? Jeremy Ruckert.
If you could, because I was going to write it down and I thought I won't bother. Yeah, go ahead.
Jeremy Ruckert, Stone Smart, and Zach Kuntz. So anyone doubting whether Mason Taylor is definitely going to be a tight end 1 just needs to listen to those 3 names. Like, as you say, what a great landing spot for Mason Taylor.
So for me, my own personal Mason Taylor hype season stepped up yet another gear. And it's rare that we have optimism at tight end for fantasy, isn't it? But we've got a few more options this year, and that makes for exciting roster builds, especially if you could pick one of these up and end up as a contributor in your rookie drafts.
We've had 2 years of absolutely massive tight end rookie numbers at the top of the charts, and who's to say that we won't have another year like that? Maybe that is the way things are going now.
Before we wrap things up, then, just want to have a quick mention of the TH Fantasy Football Bestball Bonanza 2025, raising money for the Beast and Memory Cafe, an amazing local charity supporting those living with dementia and their carers, just outside Nottingham over here in the UK. We have currently got just under 75 people signed up, just over £600 raised so far, and at the start of this week, we were absolutely overjoyed that we passed £5,000 raised all time for the Beast of Memory Cafe, which is a huge sum of money for such an amazing local charity. So a huge thank you, as always, to everyone that's taken part. If you made it this far through this episode as well, you've got to be intrigued to get yourself joining. So please head across to our social media pages and get yourself signed up. Right then, Ed, before we finish then, where does Shedeur Sanders end up?
I don't know. I mean, there was lots of talk of New Orleans, wasn't there? But they've got their quarterback, haven't they? So I don't know. It's like who takes the risk and the hype that he's going to be a backup where he goes now, surely. So who wants that hype, that focus on their backup quarterback? I'm going to say I don't know. I will say let me pick a team out of the air. The Arizona Cardinals. Don't know why.
Do you know what feels the most likely outcome for me?
Browns.
We've not, yeah.
They love a circus.
Just feels like a Browns thing to do. We were going to pick him round 1, but we waited till round 4.
Yeah.
It just seems like the sort. It's interesting. I'm sure there's a lot's going to come out about why he is dropped, and lots of people have had lots to say about that already. A lot of it is nonsense, let's be honest. But it will be interesting to see that. But we've seen what a chip on the shoulder of a player, especially quarterbacks, can do. And he's potentially coming in as quite a dangerous quarterback now, isn't he? With the talent is there, the weaknesses are there, but now the motivation could not be any bigger for him.
it's the ultimate test of his character, isn't it? You know, people have talked about his arrogance, etc., and you know, it clearly is there, and it's clearly too much, and clearly that's one of the things that's put off NFL, you know, front officers. But yeah, if he can use that motivation and hone his talent and use that chip on his shoulder positively, then yeah, he's got the talent. He isn't a round 4 quarterback, and you know, talent wise. So yeah, let's see what happens.
Thank you very much then for listening. We will be back on Monday with our first rookie mock draft of the offseason. We get to Mock Draft Monday with Lewis Wood, Fancy Pancake over here on YouTube and also on X. And then back for a main show towards the end of next week for our winners and losers from the NFL Draft 2025. All that remains to be said, though, is enjoy the rest of the draft. And Malcolm, take us home.
You have been listening to Pestell and Ed of TH Fantasy Football. For more content, follow TH_fantasy_NFL on Instagram and Twitter.